on the line. Mark, welcome back to the program, sir.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning to you. So, how have you been? How's filing been? I mean, I know that's been the key topic of the Capitol right now. Everybody's filing to run for office. How'd that go this week?
Pretty good. I think the main topic that a lot of people had was whether or not I was actually going to file to run for anything. I think they believed me now when I told them I wasn't. I was done with this for a while.
Well, you know, when a politician, and see, most politicians are not like you, Mark. Most politicians love the power, and it becomes their identity. Their identity is whatever office they hold. I know you. That's not you. So when you say that you're not running, you're not running.
Well, I mean, there might have been some things that could have changed my mind about it, but you know what? You listen to the good Lord, and if He said no, you just go with no, and you'll be safe about it.
Okay, all right. So I want to get your thoughts on something. I guess it's interesting. You know, we have Arkansas Works being debated. They're going to try to fund this thing again. They got to have 75%. Of course, before it was Arkansas Works, it was the private option. It all operates under the umbrella of Obamacare and the individual mandate. And I know you've been against this thing from day one, but I'm just curious. I mean, has anything happened that has changed your mind from where we were versus where we are now?
Just depends on what you mean, change my mind. Change my mind being against it in a big way, or just plain old against it extremely, because I've gotten it's only the stuff that's come out's only affirmed my reasons for being against it.
So you're saying where we were versus where we are now, you're even more against it than you were when you first started being against this concept of Medicaid expansion.
That's true, because I mean the conservatives, what the warnings that conservatives were putting there were being met with what seemed like reasonable things that could work out if everything happened right. So, you know, you get the benefit of the doubt, even though you know that it's probably wrong. And then when you look at it at a philosophical level, you know that transferring what might be good for Arkansas to our children's debt in the future from a federal level, there was no way around that. That was the basic reason why we should have all been against it to start with, because just because we have a few more cash dollars rolling into Arkansas for a short period of time up front doesn't mean that we should saddle our children with federal debt. I mean, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and the only problem is you have to pay Paul back 2 or 3 times what you robbed Peter for. So, I mean, everybody knew that was the situation, but they thought, well, it'd be good for Arkansas, we got to get ours. And you cut some people some benefit of the doubt, thinking, you know, trouble, not a good idea, but now we're coming to find out that it's even worse than that, that the money that's actually rolling back into Arkansas as this moves forward is going to be more even than what was originally estimated, this balloon payment that we're going to be facing. So I don't know how much longer that the state of Arkansas can kind of kick that can down the road. We may be able to get past the next 4 years without it just absolutely destroying the budget. Of course, you know, governors are pretty good at kicking cans down the road and leaving the next governor sitting high and dry. So, you know, it only makes sense to me that those people that are actually in line to be the governor the next time would not want this dropped in their lap.
Right. No, yeah, you're exactly right about that. We're talking with Secretary of State Mark Martin about Arkansas Works Obamacare. Hey, Mark, let me ask you this, because, you know, Arkansas is the only state to have done this. I mean, and I think we're the only state that has messed it up to such a degree with our innovative idea to give the money to insurance companies. And, you know, the Republicans, I'd say that they couldn't have done it, but they did do what they did. I will say, you know, they ran against, the establishment Republicans even ran against Medicaid expansion back in 2012, and then in 2013 they expanded Medicaid, but they did it under a different way. And if they would have just done it the traditional way, I still would have been against it, meaning what Obama wanted everybody to do was just to expand the existing Medicaid program and put the new population into that. But if you did it that way, right, you don't get, Blue Cross Blue Shield doesn't get this guaranteed taxpayer revenue source every single month. And so kind of in hindsight, I'm thinking, you know, it's hard for me.
I think it's time time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Good morning. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And we're so glad that you are with us. Hey, Joe, got a little echo going on over here. Just let it know if you can take care of that. That would be great. The phone number, 870-275-9799. That's better, Joe. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's 870-275-9799. You can also check us out over at facebook.com/Conduit News. That's facebook.com/Conduit News. Interestingly enough, man, I'm telling you, it is really difficult to wrestle our government away from those who want to use it to profit for themselves or their friends or their buddies. It's really a difficult task because everyone that stands to make money or have their lifestyle or their business sustained by using the government and using the force or using the pomp and circumstance surrounding it, they will line up against you and they will do their best to make sure the status quo is maintained. Interestingly enough, I am a believer, though, in the people, specifically of Arkansas, to recognize when given the truth, when given the reality, not the perception the politicians want you to believe, but when given the reality, I believe that they will make the better choice, which is more freedom, more voluntary cooperation among free men. I first got into talk radio back in 2009, late 2009, and I guess in 2015, and I was on just one station in Jonesboro, but in March of 2015, thanks to Conduit News, we were able to secure the program's second station. And that station was where I am right now, right here in Russellville, in the River Valley, if you will. So this program and my limited government perspective has been heard since March, because I went back and I checked, since March of 2015. And I got to tell you, since March of 2015, I guess that now means we've been on for 3 years, the response of conservatives, of limited government, of pro-freedom people in this area has been immense. It has been encouraging. And I think it's safe to say that over the last 3 years, the people who are listening, specifically now on KARV, 101.3 FM or 610 AM in the River Valley, you guys know me, okay? You guys have been able to listen to me for a long time as I have covered news in the state of Arkansas. And I just want to say I'm really, really thankful that you guys continue to listen. And specifically, if we want to talk about the choice that some people in the River Valley have coming up, or this week, or coming up on Tuesday with the special election in District 16, I really feel like, I mean, if you look at where the race went 2-3 weeks ago, which of course we now have a runoff coming up, between Bob Bailey and the other candidate, Breanne Davis. I really feel like the Little Rock establishment, by all accounts, they were shocked that Bob Bailey did so well. And there's a lot of working mechanisms, there's a lot of grassroots support, but I also think it has to do with the fact that the people around here have been getting the truth about the Marble Palace for 3 years now. For 3 years, Conduit News, this program, have been telling you the truth about Little Rock in this specific area for 3 years. And that is what the Marble Palace doesn't understand. They don't get it because they're in a bubble, okay? The Little Rock, and for example, our newest affiliate that I'm extremely grateful for is actually out of Little Rock. It's 96.5 The Answer out of Little Rock. So hello to everyone in Little Rock. Hello. I know you guys, see, I told you yesterday that the entire state is watching what's going on because we have conservative voters all over this state who have elected conservative politicians all over the state. And when I mean true conservative politicians, and these guys have gone down to Little Rock, and the establishment is burying them. They are being buried, and they need help. And I told you this yesterday. And so, anyway, what I say by that is that we have newer affiliates that maybe haven't been listening to this program as long as other affiliates. I will tell you that the Marble Palace was shocked that we are where we are right now in this particular race in the special election for Senate District 16. I think it has to do with you. It has to do with the people. And the people have been getting the truth, the information. And that is so valuable, okay? You guys know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Republican leadership that is in control of the Marble Palace campaign as conservatives. They run to the right when they campaign. They tell you they have conservative values. They may even harp on low-hanging fruit conservative values that we all agree on, like being pro-life and that sort of thing. But when they get down there, they actually do the opposite, which is grow government. They raise taxes. They all of a sudden take the Kool-Aid and they're afraid of the Zika virus, so they raise your taxes on your tires. Or I mean, we can go back to 2015 when this all started, when we were first on in the River Valley. We were first on here. We had just gotten this affiliate, and I was telling you that the governor's nephew, Jim Hendren, his bill did not end Medicaid expansion. Yet he was telling conservatives that he was going to end Medicaid expansion and that his bill was going to end Medicaid expansion because that's what the people wanted. And we read the bill. I read the bill, and I said, that's not true. They're going to keep Medicaid expansion. They're going to set up this phony task farce, and they're going to try to get a predetermined outcome. But the bill said that the aim was to keep the people on the program. And here we are today. Governor Hutchinson has presided over a 50% increase in a welfare program for able-to-work adults, while everybody right now that is going to work, driving to work, can't even afford to pay for their health insurance, so we can give it away to other people for free. Obamacare was about the redistribution of wealth. It was about getting people addicted and dependent on the government, and it was about socialism. So when I told everybody that, and I said back in 2015 that this was a ruse, that we have people deceiving us and misleading us, People at the Marble Palace, they were very upset. Why are you dividing the Republican Party? Why don't you know how to win? It was all of these things. And we were saying, look, folks, we're reading the bills. We're actually reading not what you say, but what it actually does. Lo and behold, Jim Hendren decided to come to a tea party in the Russellville River Valley area. It was actually called the Tri-County Tea Party, something like that, because it was like 3 different counties. And you know what he does? At the time, still the majority leader of the Arkansas Senate, Jim Hendren, comes to a meeting, and I decide to go. So I come over here from where I live because I want to hear what Senate Majority Leader Jim Hendren has to say. And you know what he says? He starts to combat all of the truths that I talk. He puts my face on his slideshow, and he tells the group, and I was very awkward because I was in there, and it wasn't a large gathering. It wasn't small, but it wasn't large. And we're in a small room, and all of a sudden, my face is up on a slideshow. So the majority leader of the Arkansas Senate came to a new listening area in 2015 to directly combat the conservative limited government viewpoint that you have heard for 3 years. This has always been a problem. Getting the truth to the people. They are upset when you point out that they are not who they campaign to be. So I say all that to say this. The primaries are now the general election. And for a very long time, when the Democrats controlled things, for 138 years legislatively. And this used to be the truth for them. Whoever won the Democrat primary a long time ago, that was the nominee. And that's where Republicans are now. But think about where Republicans were. Republicans in Arkansas before Barack Obama were the minority party. They were the party that had to bind together, to be this unbreakable. We've got to unite because we've got to stand on principle. Now we know those who really meant it and those who didn't mean it, right? But for a lot of people in the Republican Party, now that we have these massive majorities, they don't quite understand primaries. Some of them may even think that primaries are bad for the party. Well, we're kind of experiencing these growing pains, if you will. Primaries being knocked down, drag out fights have been commonplace in the Democrat Party for 138 years in Arkansas because primaries were really the general election, because whoever that Democrat was went on to win in November or whatever. And so I would just wanted to just make that observation that a lot of people don't understand why a Republican would run against another Republican. Well, the truth is there are differences. There are differences. And if you've been listening to this program, you know what those differences are. You have people who want to become part of the Marble Palace. You have people that find their worth, and you have people that find their value as being a politician and being at the Marble Palace and feeling like they've arrived and feeling like there's somebody. And then you have the people that just want to serve the public. And they just want to give an honest voice down there because they believe that it is a dishonest environment. And believe me, it is. When you have people in the Republican leadership who have been elected by campaigning on popular conservative points of view, and then they go down there and they do the opposite of what they told the people, I think you and I can both say that is morally wrong. And yet we have seen it time and time and time again. Folks, we're going to take a break because we have to, but I just wanted to say at the top of this program, number one, thank you, River Valley, for listening to this program for the last 3 years. Thank you for being such amazing patriots. And right now, there is a movement. There is a movement at hand to try to squash a resistance, a resistance to the Marble Palace, a resistance from Little Rock trying to control everything that happens in the state, even down to the local level, trying to control who the people elect and who the people don't elect. And I say it's time for a River Valley revolt. What do you say? Give me a phone call or text message, 870-275-9799. This is Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell, back in just a moment.
Bob Maloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a Blue Ribbon Task Force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a Blue Ribbon Legislative Task Force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who is deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with the Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target, and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. P.C. Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, folks. Welcome to the program. We're going to get into some news now. The phone number again, 870-275-9799. John, yeah, there we go, Joe. Sorry, had the echo again. Weird how one day things things work out, and then we get a little echo. All right, check this out. This is a very interesting article. So did you hear what the FDA did? The Food and Drug Administration is now coming out, and they're calling out PBMs. That's right, your pharmacy benefit managers, calling them out, saying, "Hey, look, this is unfair." I mean, look at this right here. Cheaper options are blocked, according to the Associated Press. They're calling this a rigged payment scheme. A rigged payment scheme among drug plans, insurers, and pharmaceutical companies. They say that they're blocking access to less expensive versions of some of the most costly drugs in the United States. This, according to Scott Gottlieb. I'm going to pronounce it that way. I like it better. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. Scott Gottlieb. And he is essentially, this is the Trump administration. This is the first time the Trump administration has really, I feel like, when it comes to health care, called a spade a spade. I mean, obviously, we know with Obamacare it was bad. The individual mandate was bad. It's great. But, I mean, they are actually coming out and saying, no. It's not just health care. It's the delivery mechanisms of health care as well that are corrupt. Essentially, that's what they're saying. I mean, what else can you say? A rigged payment scheme. I mean, it sounds like something Trump would say himself, because he said that, the election was rigged, that they were rigging the election. Remember all of that? And of course, they did rig the Democrat primary. Gosh, I don't know how you can be a Democrat anymore after what they did to Bernie Sanders. A rigged payment scheme among drug plans, insurers, and pharmaceutical companies. Now, of course, here in Arkansas, we're dealing with the exact same thing, but Arkansas is unique because we screwed this up royally. We screwed it up so much so that we now have Arkansas taxpayer dollars going to pay for Blue Cross Blue Shield policies and the welfare program. And then those dollars are going to CVS Caremark, and then it's putting local pharmacies out of business. And so local pharmacists, Arkansas tax dollars and federal tax dollars are going to put themselves out of business. The government is actually actively participating in this scheme. In Arkansas, the government is actively participating in the scheme that FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb said is a rigged payment scheme, end quote. Here's another quote. Consolidated firms, the pharmacy benefit managers, the distributors, and the drugstores team up with payers, Gottlieb said in prepared remarks at a major conference in Washington. They use their individual market power to effectively split monopoly rents with large manufacturers and other intermediaries, rather than passing on the saving garnered from competition to patients and employers. Here it goes. The rigged payment scheme might quite literally scare competition out of the market altogether. I fear that's already happening. Now, this is echoing really what Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin said, that we don't have a free market. We don't have competition. We don't have more choice. And that's the way the government wants it if you're socialist. And that's the way the big business, the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, if you're already on the top, you like it fine. You're rich, you're established, you're needed, you have a product, you have basically a captive audience, right? And if you have a captive audience, why not make the deals with the government? The politicians are happy to take the money in the form of campaign contributions, and you get to then use the power of the government, because the government has the guns, to
make it harder on your competition to squeeze every last dime out of the consumer. And we'll see. Will Asa Hutchinson actually fix the problem, or will he bow to CVS Caremark? Back in a minute.
I think that this whole thing was really just carefully crafted. Almost, it's just like a conspiratorial. It's like, okay, well, we're the only state that did what we did, and we're also the only state that really had this huge Republican wave of candidates that came in office saying they weren't going to do the traditional Medicaid, and so the lobbyists and the special interests come in and say, well, we're going to figure out a way for them to, send all of this money to insurance companies. It's a very, very weird situation. I don't think weird really describes it, but what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's a very complex thing going on that occurred there. One of the things is a lot of Republicans really don't get the fact that just because we're for capitalism doesn't mean we're for crony capitalism. And then I think that the reason it seems to correspond with the wave is not so much that there's some nefarious goings on there. We had a bunch of Republicans come into office that really never had to either survive under the Democrats and the tough fight that we had to do to maintain a conservative viewpoint, right? But they also never were and had no experience or no tradition of actually governing. So the first thing that come down the pipeline that allowed them to actually move something forward governing, right, but had enough of window dressing to salve their conscience, they were willing to grab onto. I mean, I think it comes from a wave of a bunch of new legislators being unsophisticated enough to not be able to notice what's going to happen and what the tricks are that's being played in the system.
Yeah. There were some people that knew, and there were some people that tried to sound the alarm,
oh, yeah.
You had, at the time, we just played Tim Griffin back in 2014, but that was a year afterwards. I'm pretty sure he was against it before that. Congressman Rick Crawford came out with a statement of being against it. And then State Representative Bruce Westerman, now Congressman Bruce Westerman, had his famous... I was
about to bring that one up.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about that.
Well, no, I was just fixing to say there was one person that had the intellect and the sophistication to really actually sit down and from a friendly standpoint and starting from a positive standpoint, listen to what everybody had to say. And then when it started falling out, you remember what he had to say. It was the 30 pieces of silver statement. And that was no accident. And I know that was a bombshell, but it really, really should have solidified what everybody was thinking. Whenever a guy with the intellect and just the kind demeanor of Representative Westerman makes a statement like that, then it should have rattled every single other legislature to stop and think what's going on.
Yeah. You're exactly right. Hey, let me ask you this. I think recording in committees and
bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Speaking of truth, I mean, this pharmacy benefit stuff is a big deal. And again, if you're just joining us, first of all, welcome to the program. We were just, I guess, at the top of the show, we were basically saying that we're coming up on our, I guess, 3-year anniversary since the program started getting new affiliates. And that first affiliate, of course, was right here in Russellville, where I'm broadcasting today in the River Valley. We were talking about that. See, I think here's real quick. Can I say one more thing on that? I think there's some people who are maybe bigger government type people who have only just now discovered this program. And it's quite a shock to them. It's quite a shock. Hey, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. But this pharmacy news is a big deal. We know it's going to affect Arkansas. We know there's a push to have the special session
down in Little Rock after they get done with the fiscal session. And we know there's different, I mean, I've talked to people down there. There's different forms of legislation going around. Of course, Senator Caldwell's legislation seems to be the one that's the best in terms of actually fixing this problem. But it would require transparency. It would require the people and the public to be able to actually see these contracts. Of course, CVS Caremark doesn't want you to see the contract they have with Blue Cross Blue Shield. They don't want the public to know. And CVS Caremark is huge. You have to understand something here. I guess Blue Cross Blue Shield, big company. They're nothing compared to CVS Caremark. And so we talked about how Blue Cross Blue Shield is even scared of CVS Caremark. And if Blue Cross Blue Shield is scared of CVS Caremark, then you know Asa Hutchinson is scared because Asa Hutchinson is scared of Blue Cross Blue Shield. You see how that works? Yes, of course we do. Of course we see how that works. Matter of fact, do you guys remember Michael Smith? Michael Smith is a pharmacist here in Arkansas, specifically Russellville. And Michael Smith came on the program a couple of weeks ago when this PBM issue here in Arkansas really blew up. And people started realizing that your local pharmacist may go out of business by the end of the year if we don't start to regulate these PBMs. Now, as a conservative, I pretty much hate regulations. I pretty much think that they're a waste of time for the most part. But because we have this quasi-socialist, quasi-fascist healthcare system right now, where private companies are sort of private, but the government's controlling them, and then the private companies are controlling the government. I mean, it's really weird. It's just the definition of corruption is really what it is. Because we have this system, which is, let's just call it generally socialism, we're accepting this concept that healthcare is a right and that we're born enslaved to one another's healthcare costs into this world, which is a very immoral concept. But because that's what it is, inside the socialist system, we now have a conservative such as myself crying out for more regulation, which is exactly what Obama and the socialists wanted from the beginning. So we have to have more regulations to correct what the government did in the first place. That being said, I don't want local pharmacists to go out of business. So here we are, right? I think Michael Smith, this local pharmacist, he certainly knows a lot about what he's talking about, and he was on the show, and that interview went all over the place. Matter of fact, when I went down to the Pharmacy Association's meeting that they had in the old Supreme Court room at the Marble Palace, when I walked in and we were setting up our cameras, everybody was looking at me. I mean, it was weird. I walked into the room and I immediately felt like I was on stage. You know what I mean? There's not a stage there, but I immediately felt like I was on a stage. I kind of started looking around and everybody was looking at me. Well, it's because, there's a ton of pharmacists and they all saw that video. They all saw me interview Michael Smith and others as well. Michael Smith was actually here in Russellville. I mean, he lives here, but there was a event for the Senate candidate, Mr. Bob Bailey, on Monday. And, of course, Linda Collins Smith was here. Alan Clark was here. State Representatives Josh Miller, Charlotte Vinding Douglas, Dan Sullivan were here. And they all were here to support Bob Bailey, these candidates or these politicians from across the state. Well, you know who else was here? Mr. Michael Smith, this pharmacist. And he actually addressed some of this CVS stuff in his remarks to the packed room who were out supporting Bob Bailey. Let's actually listen. Here's Michael Smith from Monday evening. Take a listen.
Thank you. I just want to say a few words of thank you and expressing my appreciation for Bob's campaign. Our families knew each other before Bob even we and I met. My wife worked for several years with the Russellville School District, and then she ran for the school board and was on the school board for 14 years and got to know Gayla. Our two sons went to school together back in high school, and wouldn't you know it, one of his became a minister, and one of mine is now a pastor also. So we have a lot of intertwining. Bob and I met several years ago and began to discuss values, very conservative values, and what our background was. I came from I was born in the U.S. Navy and spent several years at home with my parents, moving around with the U.S. Navy, so I had a little bit of a military background there too. We also had conservative values. I would sit in his living room or his workshop, and we would discuss not only the guns, but also we would discuss values. And he would come to my living room and we would sit down at length and discuss values. And it was very, very important. I started supporting Bob right off when he decided to run. I was very, very encouraged what he did. And I wanted to give him support immediately, which I did. And come January 1, that's when the fat hit the fire on the PBM issue. I'm glad to say that the pharmacists in Arkansas have finally broken the silence against what is crony capitalism, against what is happening to our small businesses, which are being crushed by this conglomerate of Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield and Caremark CVS. If you don't know who Caremark CVS is, you'll soon know, because they're right down the corner here, coming very, very soon. Did you realize that that is an organization that pays, get this comes from the chairman of CVS. They pay 1% of all the corporate tax money that's paid in America. Caremark has that kind of profit. And we're talking about Walmart, bigger than Walmart. So we're talking about huge money out there. And we're up against that. And the crony capitalism and the corruption that goes on between this combination of Arkansas Works, Arkansas Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Caremark is enormous, enormous. And Dan knows the figures on a lot of this, and Paul has quoted those many, many times, and you are accurate. You are very, very accurate. So I will tell you this, his opponent didn't come, but Bob came to my store, shook my hand, came to my pharmacists and my partners in various stores, and came and visited every pharmacist that he possibly could, whereas his opponent did none of the above. She only came to 2 stores, but she says she's interested in pharmacy. How can she be interested in pharmacy when she's not interested in the pharmacists that live and work and breathe in the River Valley? Bob has come. Bob made the last 2 weeks ago, he went down to our news conference that was held for the Arkansas Pharmacists Association, made the big announcement, made the big splash across the whole state. And our CEO, Scott Pace, has made PBM a household name, a dirty household name, by the way. It's a 4-letter word as far as I'm concerned. PBM. Anybody know what that means? Pharmacy benefit? No, it means phony baloney middleman. That's what it really means. Phony baloney middleman, because they're taking what little bit we've got and giving to themselves and sending it up to Woonsocket, Rhode Island. That's where your money is going. From here to there, Arkansas taxpayers' monies are going. So that's one of the main reasons I support Bob. Bob has asked me a million questions about PBM, and his staff has. And so we've become quite well acquainted. Misty and Elaine have done an excellent job of bringing this out, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
So that was Mr. Michael Smith, Arkansas pharmacist. Definitely knows what the problem is right now here in Arkansas. You hear he use the word crony capitalism. Crony capitalism. It's interesting. Do you remember, we used to talk a lot about crony capitalism. It was a big deal. Barack Obama had just been elected president. And I know there was a lot of groups. One group who was integral in getting this phrase, crony capitalism, stuck into the minds of the Arkansas voters as well as people nationwide was Americans for Prosperity, actually. And there was all kinds of little short videos on YouTube from conservative outlets telling people what crony capitalism really was. Now, I later kind of quit using the word because I started thinking to myself, crony capitalism, it really doesn't go together, because capitalism is about, selling a product or service at a profit. And that, that's a good thing. The crony capitalism, you add crony, it's supposed to denote that that there's an unfair advantage, that the government's picking winners and losers, and that sort of thing. So I understand how they go together, but anyway, it's just putting. I was just uncomfortable with using eventually any form of the word of a phrase that denotes capitalism as a bad thing. Of course, I think when you think about crony capitalism, I do think it is a bad thing. But you understand what I say. I think it's just cronies. Like, I think it's just corruption. I think it's just people using the government to enrich themselves. That's what it is. That's what's supposed. But anyway, you got to remember. Okay, so you had Barack Obama. You had Solyndra, remember that, where he gave $500 million to solar panels that wound up in a dumpster. You actually saw when they went bankrupt, it was more expensive to keep the remaining product of solar panels that they have in a warehouse, and so they just dumped them into a dumpster. They threw them away. They destroyed them. It was cheaper to just destroy them in the bankruptcy than it was to house them in the warehouse where they were. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And so I say all that to say that back in 2010 and 2011, and then 2013 rolls around, the phrase crony capitalism was alive and well because of Barack Obama. And then Republicans in Arkansas decided to do the exact opposite of what they told everyone they would do. And they expanded Medicaid. And they did it by giving money to insurance companies, picking winners and losers. And I called this immediately when I heard what they were trying to do, because I remember it. And I think there were maybe even tweets from Michael Lamoureux to myself where I said, this is crony capitalism on Twitter. And I'm almost 100% sure Michael Lamoureux himself tweeted back at me and tried to dispute, well, this is not crony capitalism, blah, 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 blah. And clearly they didn't even know what they were doing, or they were very, very protective and paranoid that people like me were going to expose the fact that this is not a conservative alternative to Obamacare underneath the umbrella of Obamacare. That doesn't make any sense. Of course, eventually, outlets like ours, we were successful in showing the people that it was Obamacare, that it was, in fact, progressive, liberal, and it was exactly what Obama wanted us to do, and Arkansas did it. And, of course, once the people found that out, Asa Hutchinson came in, and he just changed the name of the program because, I think, personally, he thinks that we're all idiots. I mean, that's what I think. My opinion, I think we'll just change the name of the program because the people are stupid. From the private option to Arkansas Works. People found out private option was Obamacare, so he had to change the name if he was going to keep it. I mean, can you imagine if he just said, we're keeping it, things the way they are? I don't know. It would have been bad, so he had to change the name of the program. Do you remember there was, I don't know if it was a Prager University video. I can't remember. It was a long time ago, but it was a video of these little kids. And they were in the, I guess they were probably in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And it was just started out saying, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was just kid after kid after kid basically saying, I want to be a crony. And then it was things like, I want to get a business and then use the government to, Johnny, sweep the legs, the competition of, my competitors and all this stuff. And it was shocking, but you realize, that's who actually grows up and wants to be a crony when you're a little kid. And yet we have a lot of them. We got a lot of them in this state right now. And that's what they are. They're just, some of them are placeholders. Some of them are actively deceiving the people. Some of them are actively benefiting from taxpayer funded revenues to support their business, and in all kinds of ways. The phone number is 870-275-9799. But I specifically remember, so when Mr. Michael Smith here, this pharmacist, says that now we have crony capitalism that's affecting the pharmacists and the PBMs and CVS Caremark and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and why not just throw Asa Hutchinson's name in all this because he's involved in all of this? I think it is crony capitalism. If that's the phrase we want to call it, I'm good with that now. I really am, because that's what this is. They're picking winners and losers, and the government decides that the winner is Blue Cross and CVS Caremark,
and the government decides that the loser is your local pharmacy, your local pharmacist, and what we're talking about here is your local small business. And that, ladies and gentlemen, do you want that money to stay in your own economy? Or do you want that money, like Michael Smith said, going to, what did he say? Did he say Maryland or Rhode Island? He said, do you want it to go to Rhode Island? That is the question. The telephone number is 870-275-9799. I enjoyed hearing what he had to say about Bob Bailey and how Bob, of course, Bob doesn't take CVS Caremark money. Bob is not taking CVS Caremark money. His opponent, though, Breanne Davis, has. Oh, my gosh. Did you see her last financial report? We covered it yesterday, but she has raised $142,000. Bob Bailey's only raised $42,000, but her last influx of cash was essentially from Michael Morton. You know, the nursing home owner, Michael Morton, you know, the one who who was involved. There was a judgment against him for like $5 million, and then Mike Maggio pled guilty, saying that he took a $10,000 bribe to lower the judgment from like $5 million to $3 million. Yeah. Go look on the financials. Not to mention Asa Pack. It's very clear. We put to rest yesterday who is the big money in this particular Senate race once and for all. And matter of fact, if you start looking at out-of-state donations, oh my gosh, you know how much Bob Bailey has raised from out of the state of Arkansas? $100. $100. You know how much Breanne Davis has raised from outside the state of Arkansas? $12,000. Yeah, that's right. Matter of fact, I got the numbers. I'll break it down even more for you when we come back. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're building a Liberty machine. Back in a minute. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer?
Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal.
Ethics.
Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
And it is a swamp. Indeed, it is a swamp. Hey, welcome back to the program. We were just kind of rehashing the financials of this Senate race up in Russellville, Senate District 16. And it was quite interesting when you look at the latest filings, of course, with Michael Morton money, Centene money, Asa PAC money going to Breanne Davis, now raising $142,000 total so far. Bob Bailey only having raised $42,000. So we definitely know who is the big money candidate and who is not the big money candidate. Oh, by the way, I just want to reiterate this, that Breanne Davis is welcome on this program any time she wants to come on. We had Breanne Davis scheduled to be on this program in the month of December, and she had to cancel. I believe she was scheduled on a Friday, a Johnny Cash Friday, and she canceled, I guess, on the Wednesday before. And we have, and she said that she would get back to me at the first of the year to reschedule. She has never done that. I would love for her to come on this program, right? She put out a video accusing Bob Bailey or something of being afraid to debate her or something on Facebook. I mean, you come on this show, you're welcome to come on this show. I don't know why you wouldn't. I think you were probably told not to back in December, because we would have asked you specific questions. We would have asked you about the issues of the campaign. You would have actually had to have discussed them and not just talked around in circles. But if you want to look at the total funds received, Bob Bailey, $42,025. That's what he's received. Breanne Davis, $148,300. They have just poured money in this last cycle. And the reason they've poured all of this money in, folks, is because the Little Rock monolith, Marble Palace, the lobbyists, Asa Hutchinson, they really want to win this, and they are trying to throw as much money at it as they can because they didn't expect it to be this close. They didn't expect that the limited government message that the River Valley, thanks to this program, has heard for the last 3 years would actually get people out into the polls, and of course it has. Listen to this, though. How much money has Bob Bailey received from out of state? According to the financial reports, he's received $100. How much money has Breanne Davis received from out of state? She's received $12,000. How much money has Bob Bailey received from political action committees and businesses? $26,400.
How much money has Breanne Davis received from political action committees? $75,650. Wow, it's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy how they are projecting and deflecting onto Bob Bailey the very thing they themselves are guilty of. Oh, but we got to talk about the issues. They don't want to talk about the issues. We got to go. One more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Recording the House is a good thing for the constituents and everything else, transparency. But do you know that that speech that Bruce Westerman gave on the private option and how not to and why they shouldn't implement it and do not trade your vote for 30 pieces of silver, he said that. And, of course, that is verified now because Richard Womack said after the fact that he was offered a bribe to vote for the private option. State Representative Womack said lobbyists offered him a bribe. So Bruce Westerman was right in saying don't trade your vote for 30 pieces of silver. But do you know that that speech was used as a justification to not put cameras in the Arkansas Senate chamber because we don't need this to become, theater and the showboating. They thought Bruce Westerman was showboating when in reality he was just telling the truth.
Yeah, I mean, the Senate's always been resistant to any kind of accountability. It's the nature of the chamber. I think it's that way all over the United States because they're less accountable to the voters. They got a longer time period between times that they have to be up for election. So the natural outlay of that is what you see there. And, I mean, we see it happen all the time with our federal Senate, too. So, I mean, I find that rather unsurprising that that was going on. Now, you know, one of the things about it that's kind of interesting is everybody thinks the first thing that your mind goes to is taking a bribe and stuff like that. You know, there's tons of other ways that are all perfectly legal that this money flowed, whether or not it was promises for jobs afterwards or other things like that. I mean, it wasn't just flat out stacks of money in pie boxes, right?
Right.
I mean, there was tons of other ways that people benefited personally from voting a certain way.
Right.
And of course, you know, from an ethical standpoint, that's just as wrong. From a legal standpoint, there's nobody to charge on this stuff.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you look at Michael Lamoureux. I mean, I don't know why the lobbyists felt compelled to donate all that money to the Faith and Freedom Coalition, $140,000, and then he got a $120,000 payment. That was all legal, right? Because technically it went through his law practice and, you know, he's an attorney and everything else. So, I mean, we have examples of exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and of course, I wasn't even thinking of that one there. That's kind of new to me. I must have missed that piece of paper. But yes, I mean, exactly those sort of situations. Jobs in different various places of government, jobs in different places in the industry. You've seen a lot of them fall out that really, you say, and that's all you can do.
Yeah. Well, hey, let me encourage you, Secretary of State Mark Martin, if you ever do want to get back into office, you want to take a break, I get that. You've done a great job as Secretary of State. You have been able, real quick before we go, you've been able to make improvements to the Capitol grounds there, some structural improvements that had been neglected for a long time, and you ended up doing it, you know, within the budget or under budget. I mean, you saved a lot of money out of your office. Is that right?
Yeah, that's our actual budget over the 8 years have been essentially baseline, with the exception of the COLA increases that went to employees. The governor actually does, so that goes into our baseline budget. But within our baseline budget, we've actually had a zero baseline, and with that, we have actually done somewhere close to $20 million with a couple of grants on either the building or the purchasing election equipment. We've done that without additional appropriations for the legislature. Those were off-budget items that were supposed to be funded by the legislature. We've done it with budget cuts within our office. That means that now what used to be supplemental appropriations is actually being done out of the M&O, the Secretary of State's office, which is a huge transformation. It's probably equivalent to about a 25% budget cut over the long term of the office. Of course, there's more than that. We've gone from, depending on which numbers you want to look at before I took office, they had as many as or more than 226 full-time equivalent employees in the Arkansas Secretary of State's office. We're down to around 136, 138, depending on what time we set. So even though, there's tons of money that's associated with that will, for generations, be essential cuts, because all of the employment benefits divisions, benefits that actually would go to a large workforce is now coming off.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. This is Conduit News Radio. I am Paul Harrell, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine, and we're so glad that you guys are with us today. We cannot do the program without you listening every single day. A couple of things. I know. The Senate did pass the Arkansas Works budget. I was surprised with how the vote totals turned out as well. You had Senators Terry Rice and Alan Clark, deciding to vote for it. I have not spoken to those two gentlemen yet, who are generally opposed to the program. Of course, Asa Hutchinson engaging in that theatrical stunt on Monday, where he essentially admits that he didn't get the one part of the waiver that the people of Arkansas needed if we were actually going to save money. He didn't get the 138% down to 100% coverage drop. Trump administration declined that. Matter of fact, the New York Times wrote a piece about that. I saw that. I'm not really sure. I know some of the logic was kind of a defeatist attitude, which was, might as well vote for it, because if we don't pass it, they'll just call a special session where they don't need the 3/4 vote. And so I don't know. We'll have to see, where it goes from here. Am I disappointed? Yeah, I'm disappointed that it was funded, because I actually think we should have. I think they had every reason to not fund it, because he didn't get what he even promised. I mean, if you were already against the funding of Arkansas Works, and then the governor was saying work requirements, we're going to get work requirements. Well, okay, work requirements, you've gotten those, but they're bogus. I mean, we all know that. But the one thing that you could hang your hat on that Asa was trying to do, which was to save the state money by removing people and getting basically the coverage model under control, going from 138 to 100, you could definitively say that was a goal that was going to attempt to save the state money. Well, he didn't get that. So now we're going to continue down the same path, and it's fiscally unsustainable. And in a fiscal session, you had every opportunity to bring that to light. And I know you say, well, they'll just pass it in a normal session. Okay, I get that, but make them do it. Make them own it. Make them have to go and say, and maybe, I know they're not going to like that, but make them say, okay, I mean, we're going to continue spending this state into oblivion, which is exactly what's going on right now. So yeah, I'm really disappointed in it. I know we haven't covered it because we didn't cover it yesterday, but it actually happened on today's Thursday. It actually happened on Tuesday, and so we dropped the ball on that. But it's because we were talking, and we were breaking news yesterday that hadn't been reported yet. That's what we were doing. We've got to get a sip of coffee. Hang on. The telephone number is 870-275-9799. It's 870-275-9799. Let me see here. There were some mailers. This is very interesting because there were some mailers that dropped the other day, yesterday, as a matter of fact, in this special election race. And it's exactly what we've exposed on the program before. Thought it was interesting. The headline here is liberals are uniting behind Breanne Davis. And look at these issues. This is true. She's on record saying that she wants to weaken term limits. She's on record saying that that Breanne Davis has said. I mean, I've seen the video where she said she believes politicians should stay down in Little Rock longer so that they can get a handle on what's going on. Okay. All right. Well, I disagree with that. I think term limits are a good thing. She, of course, is for expanded Obamacare in Arkansas, otherwise known as Arkansas Works. She is against school choice. And the reason Breanne Davis is against school choice is because we know that because she filled out a family council survey, and Jerry Cox of the Family Council is an amazing patriot and a really, really great godly Christian man. And they put out these surveys so that they can do a voter guide. And Family Council are proponents of school choice. And Breanne Davis said she was against the school choice bill that actually failed last time. And liberals were against that. And so she stood with him on that. She did criticize gun enthusiasts, and she did that right after she criticized Bob Bailey himself right after the Florida tragedy. The shooting. And here's the last thing, that she is supported by liberals. Now, this is an undeniable fact that Breanne Davis is supported by liberals because we've shown you this before, what liberals are saying about Breanne Davis. And we have this Facebook post on February 14th from Barbara, who says, something to think about. We had a special election Republican primary for State Senate District 16 in Arkansas today. Democrats joined in and voted for the least reprehensible Republican. She won. Why did Democrats support and vote for her? Number one, we will support and vote for the sole Democrat running against this Republican in November. We'll get out the vote to win. Number two, the other Republican was a damn gun nut loon. Number three, if the Republican wins the general, at least she is sane and centrist. This mailer goes on to say, liberals are now voting in our Republican primary to elect the most liberal Republican, Breanne Davis. Try something new. Vote for an outsider, Bob Bailey. This is a mailer that dropped the other day. Now, the reason this is interesting for Senate District 16 is because I have long said, and I don't know if this is going to happen now, but I have long said that if the Jan Morgan primary of Governor Asa Hutchinson is close, then Asa and his team will get Democrats to go vote in the Republican primary in order to make sure Asa Hutchinson wins. And don't doubt that, because it's happening here, and of course it had happened here on a statewide basis. Now, the interesting thing on that is that now with the Jan Morgan Asa Hutchinson thing, the Democrats have a primary for governor. You've got Jared Henderson running against I can't remember her name. It just is it what is it? Honestly, I can't remember their name. But anyway, I think she's from Maumelle, and she's a hairdresser. And so maybe that's not going to happen now. But of course, there is no Democrat primary in Senate District 16. And of course, I will tell you this, just now, yesterday on Facebook, there were more Democrats out there bragging about supporting Breanne Davis just yesterday, because early voting is going on right now. Joe, can you throw this thing up there for me? This was let me see if I can see that. Can you throw this photo up of a Democrat? I sent it to you. A Democrat supporting Breanne Davis yet again. because this is a big deal. People need to know this. I mean, come on. If you've got people who are, actively trying to sabotage, I mean, it's really a case for closed primaries. I was talking to someone the other day about this, and they were saying, we probably do need to have closed primaries. There was a time when Republicans and Democrats kind of respected each other. They had honor when it came to this. And why would you want to, why would you want to co-opt or sabotage something, of another party and that sort of thing? But of course, that's, we have Democrats doing that, and we have proof. Hey, Joe, are you there, Joe? Can you give me that? Photo that I sent you? I mean, I may have it here on my phone. I can just read it. But if you can throw it up for our online listeners, that would be ideal. The telephone number 870-275-9799. Here's a screenshot of it on Facebook. And we have Breanne Davis supporters talking with somebody named Rachel. Let's see, Megan on Facebook writing, "You are so welcome. I don't typically vote strictly down party lines, and I have so much respect for you guys participating in this Republican primary." Rachel writes, "While I can hope for some Democratic wins, I understand the history of our district and Republican majority, so it's important to participate in the primaries and the final election, even if I may vote for different folks." Love, love, love these words, Megan says. So even yesterday, and you see that on the screen, we all have yet again incontrovertible proof. Look, folks, I'm sick of this. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of this. I'm sick of giving you the truth and the facts, and the other side saying, "No, you're lying. You're lying about my positions." No, nobody's lying here. The facts are there for everybody. I deal in facts. I deal in truth. And at this point, everybody's just going to have to go vote. Like, I'm kind of done with this. Just go vote. We can agree to disagree, I guess. But if, here's the thing. This is what is actually going on right now. Okay. You drop a truth bomb here on this program. Okay. No, you're lying about me. Okay. Well, then, did you hear that this campaign is saying that we're lying? No, I didn't say that you're lying. It's like, what? Okay, what? I mean, it's literally just complete doublespeak. Up is down, left is right, bad is good. I mean, I'm just kind of sick of it. I think a lot of people in the River Valley are sick of it. So at this point, you just got to get out and go vote, be done with it, and it'll all be over on Wednesday. How about that? Does that sound good to everybody? But we do need to be aware of the facts. The true conservatives, the patriots that are in the River Valley, specifically in Senate District 16, that have been listening to this program for 3 years since we've been on in this area. You guys know the truth. We told you this in the first hour. You guys know what's really going on down at the Marble Palace because you've been listening to me for 3 years tell you what the truth is. You've been listening to me for 3 years trying to fight this. Trying to stand up because, look, I believe that more freedom and liberty is better. I believe when the government grows, our personal freedom and liberties contract, right? And I don't believe in higher taxes. Establishment Republicans do. They will find a way to do it, right? I don't believe in higher. You ever see that? This is probably a terrible segue, but I can't help it. We've gone over this one before, Joe. You'll certainly know what I'm talking about. Anybody ever see the movie The Dark Knight? Ever see that? It's the Batman movie, the Christian Bale Batman movie with the Joker. And the mob in this film, the mob is using a Chinese international to basically launder all of their money, to store all their money, and that sort of thing. And that's who the mob has confidence is. And the Joker comes in, and the Joker looks at that guy, this Chinese international, and he says, "You know what? The Batman's going to find that guy. Just look at him. The Batman's going to find him. I know he's in China, but he's going to find him, and he's going to make him talk. He's going to make him squeal." And you can tell that the Chinese international, this character, like, you can tell he believes, like, he's like, "Yeah, that's who I am. Like, I'm totally the guy that's I am going to do that if Batman gets a hold of me.
I'm going to make a deal. I'm going to betray everybody, in the mob. And the Joker is right. That's exactly what happens. Batman finds him and he squeals. That's the way I feel about some Republicans who run as conservatives. I feel like I can kind of just like, you're going to find a way to raise my taxes and tell me it's conservative, aren't you? Like, look at him. Like, I know this. Look at you. You're going to do it, aren't you? You're going to find a way to put more regulations and red tape between me and my Second Amendment rights, aren't you? I mean, when push comes to shove, that's what you're going to do, isn't it? And sometimes you just kind of have a gut feeling. The good news is other times you don't even need a gut feeling. Do you know why you don't need a gut feeling? Because we have facts and truth and news reporting that's accurate, like the fact that Democrats are now actively recruiting. We were told the other day that there are Democrat lobbyists that are calling, one in particular that are calling up to Democrats or who they believe are still Democrats and saying, hey, you've got to get out and vote for Breanne Davis. This is Asa Hutchinson's only play. Asa Hutchinson's only play. And you know what your only play is? You've got to go vote, and you got to get people to just go. I mean, you know what? The more people that vote, it's open primaries. The more people that vote, I suppose, the better. But it is interesting that we have candidates who are both trying to tell you they're the most conservative candidate since Barry Goldwater or Ronald Reagan, but one has Democrats supporting them, Hillary Clinton Democrats, and they're actively saying one is a gun nut and this one would be more centrist. It'd be one thing if you had Democrats who were coming over who were changing their mind because they now believe in conservatism. That'd be one thing. But it's another thing when you have Democrats coming over who are claiming that Breanne Davis is the centrist and we don't want the more conservative Bob Bailey to be elected. And these are all facts. It is of public record. It's all cited. There's no misinformation here. These are facts. And sometimes, I'm sorry, it's the truth. And the truth, if you don't like the truth, it'll make you miserable. Yeah, the truth can just make you miserable sometimes. We got to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Back in a moment.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so yesterday we broke this story that had to do with a contract that the Russellville School District entered into. Of course, it's been a very controversial piece because depending on which side you are on, no one likes to hear bad news about their candidate. But we did report that Breann Davis's employer, the SAS Institute, which is an outfit out of North Carolina, I believe, they got a contract, a government contract with the Russellville School District for $50,000. Now, that's Breann Davis's employer. She filled out an application saying that there's no financial interest in that sort of thing. Everybody has to do that, right? It's just transparency. Of course, I dispute that there's no financial interest. I mean, you can say that. You fill it out. It's just about transparency. Again, there's nothing illegal that's gone on. But, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's kind of like when somebody gives somebody like 3 consecutive life sentences. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why do judges do that? Why do you get 3 life sentences? Okay. Why can't you just say, we sentence you to die in jail? But instead, it's just like the same thing. It's like, well, I have no financial interest. Well, because you claim you have no financial interest, when you clearly do, because the money's going to your employer, and you have now, at the very least, job security. You know what I mean? It's just it's weird to me. Like, I don't get that. But just to kind of add a little bit more to this, if you'll throw the documents up there, Joe, there was actually another disclosure form that was filed earlier in the month of December. So she filed one where she said that she was an account executive at SAS Institute. But then she filed another one, and this is the more recent one, where she says that she is in software sales at SAS Institute. Look at this. Provide a brief description of the nature of the services for which the compensation was received. And she says that she identifies herself as a software sales account executive. Not that she just works for SAS Institute, which is what she said on the other financial disclosure. And this one that is unrelated, this has to do with some sort of, she's on the board of the Arkansas Athletic Trainers Association or something, something to do with athletics. But here she identifies herself as that she is in software sales. And I just think that's a little bit more information when the Russellville School District bought your software that you sell. Now, yeah, she didn't vote for it. She left the room when they were discussing it. But, I mean, does anyone find that a little bit more interesting? That's like another layer here? So you're in software sales and they buy your software. I just find that just a little bit more, just like Little Rock, actually. I mean, this is the stuff goes on. Again, there's nothing illegal here. But, I mean, we have had senator after senator and representative after representative that have now been publicly exposed across the state as carving out their own little financial niche and using their office in government to do it. And, it's I don't know what came first. I honestly don't know. Was she on the school board first and then she got the job, or did she get the job and then get on the school board? I don't know. But if you're on the school board first and then you get the job, it just makes a lot of sense. So, of course, we would want, this person on the school board. Anyway, these are the facts. There's nothing, you may not. These are the facts, okay? And you may not like them, but that's the report. And, folks, you guys have been listening to this program for 3 years in the River Valley area. And so you know who I am, and you know me, and you know the battle I have been fighting, I think, on behalf of the people, on behalf of freedom, liberty, governing by principles, not governing by what's pragmatic and what is just going to get something done. People who say that the government just needs to get the job done. People who say that deny that everything the government does is political. Let me say that again. A lot of people don't
don't understand that when I say that. The government is made up of people. People are made up of agendas. Everything is political. Everything is political. Whether you're talking about spending money, where you're talking about balancing a budget, everything is political. Government we just need to send people down there to get the job done. Well, you act like there's something government can do that is politically benign, and I'm telling you, nothing it does is, whether it's Republicans, whether it's true conservatives, there's nothing that is done. And the left gets by with a lot. The left, well, that's how they grow government. Well, government just has to do the job that government's supposed to do. They say that wanting you to think it's apolitical, when in reality, it's probably way more political than just being honest about what your agenda is. I'm for limited government. I'm for less regulation and less taxes in constitutional principles. That's what I'm for. Back in a minute.
You've done a great job as Secretary of State. You have been able, real quick before we go, you've been able to make improvements to the Capitol grounds there, some structural improvements that had been neglected for a long time, and you ended up doing it, within the budget or under budget. I mean, you saved a lot of money out of your office. Is that right?
Yeah, that's our actual budget over the 8 years have been essentially baseline, with the exception of the COLA increases that went to employees. The governor actually does, so that goes into our baseline budget. But within our baseline budget, we've actually had a zero baseline, and with that, we have actually done somewhere close to $20 million with a couple of grants on either the building or the purchasing election equipment. We've done that without additional appropriations for the legislature. Those were off-budget items that were supposed to be funded by the legislature. We've done it with budget cuts within our office. That means that now what used to be supplemental appropriations is actually being done out of the M&O, the Secretary of State's office, which is a huge transformation. It's probably equivalent to about a 25% budget cut over the long term of the office. Of course, there's more than that. We've gone from, depending on which numbers you want to look at before I took office, they had as many as or more than 226 full-time equivalent employees in the Arkansas Secretary of State's office. We're down to around 136, 138, depending on what time we set. So even though, there's tons of money that's associated with that will, for generations, be essential cuts, because all of the employment benefits division benefits that actually would go to a large workforce is now coming off of off-budget items. This is stuff that I don't even get credit for. It's a cut to the state budget because we don't have as many employees for long-term liabilities.
Yeah, well, that's really good.
So, really what we've got is a huge budget cut to the Secretary of State's office overall. And if you just look at the pure baseline numbers as far as the accounting of the DFNA,
folks,
it's a flat.
Just notice, Mark, I think the audiences would not disagree with me here. Listen to how excited he is about telling you about huge budget increases in my office. Like, you're a true conservative, Mark, so I want to encourage you to, when you take your time off, your state needs you again, and you need to throw your hat back in the ring at some point, and I really appreciate you coming on the program, Mark.
Well, it might be a while, but honest men don't get rich in politics, so I got to go back out and get some money, make the money some other way.
There you go. Also another indicator you need to run for office again. Honest men do not get rich in politics. All right, best of luck to you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Secretary of State Mark Martin, everybody. We're going to take a break. Hey, when we come back, I'm going to...
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. This is Conduit News Radio. Matter of fact, sitting next to me, we have the wife of Bob Bailey. Miss Gayla Bailey is joining us. Gayla, welcome to the program for the first time.
Thank you very much.
Glad that you could make it. Let's see here. I just wanted to talk a little bit about your background in education, right? You were a teacher for how long?
For 37 years in the Russellville School District.
Okay.
I feel like it was my calling. enjoyed teaching greatly. It was, and the odd thing is that I taught civics and government and citizenship, and then Bob decides that he wants to, quote unquote, throw his hat in the ring and attempt to bring principles back into government that he thinks are missing.
Yeah.
I taught the principles that Bob stands for. He is a true limited government conservative. He believes that the power should rest in the hands of the people and not elected officials. He also has a very strong sense of individual responsibility and individuals' rights to make their own choices and decisions. And I think as a teacher and as a mom and as a citizen that the ability that we have to raise voters who are responsible to the people of their district, the better we do, the better off we'll be as a state and a community.
Yeah.
But having said that, this is not my comfort zone. If I were in a classroom of, say, 30 kids, I would feel much more comfortable. This whole campaign has pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Right.
And there are certain things that have been discussed and have been stated about not only Bob but me that really cause me concern, like that Bob doesn't support public education.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to teach you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just like I would teach my students.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right.
So issues are fluid. They're changing. You can't say public education and know all about it. It's not possible. There are too many components. There are too many parts of the public education system. And if somebody comes out and says, well, Bob Bailey doesn't support public education, there could be nothing further from the truth. Bob lived public education with me in the classroom. I love public education. My children were greatly benefited by public education. Now, are there parts of public education that Bob might not agree with? Well, possibly. It's just like if I go on the record and say I want smaller classrooms.
Right. You're now disagreeing with, you could be framed of disagree with public education because you don't think maybe 30 is too big. Maybe 15 would be better.
There you go. And that's a situation that I feel like you can't win it and you can't address every little petty thing that's brought up. But I think that any campaign, it doesn't make any difference whose, needs to be very careful about how they generically qualify something as this is my opponent's opinion.
Yeah.
Because in this case, there could be nothing further from the truth.
Yeah. So as a public school teacher, we're talking with Gayla Bailey. She's the wife of Bob Bailey. As a public school teacher, I know I'm going to back up to the civics.
Okay.
Because I think that's great. I mean, how many students, I think I heard a number the other night, how many students you have taught civics. And I bet a lot of them are listening right now or are still living in the area,
I taught approximately 5,500.
5,500 students over the course. Wow, that's amazing.
And all here because my whole teaching experience is here. I know a lot of them are in the area. A lot of my former students have reached out to me through Bob's campaign, and I actually keep in touch with many of them. I enjoy the fact that a lot of them are very active in their communities, not just, and that's something else I'd like to say. You don't have to be a candidate for office to be politically active. Your political activism can be in a lot of ways. It can be volunteering. It could be writing letters to the editor of a newspaper. It could be a blogger. It might even be like having your own conservative talk radio show.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So the concept that political just means running for office, I think is off.
Well, talk about the concept. I think a lot of voters are they don't agree with being a career politician or using politics as a career. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, you probably don't want to know my thoughts on that, but politics isn't a career. It's not designed to be a career in a Republican system of government. In a democratic republic, the quote unquote term politics doesn't really apply. Our government's set up for elected officials to serve the constituents that they represent.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of our republic as such. You can't go get a degree in quote unquote politics. When Bob's not a politician, and thank goodness Bob will never be a politician. He is not gonna cater to anybody. He'll listen. He's a good listener.
Right.
He's a good talker.
He's not going to be bullied or pushed around, by anyone.
Just let me say, there have been major attempts to bully and push Bob around, such as, this goes back to civics. Bob's campaign originally, from the very beginning, set out a course of how they wanted to run this campaign. It was very hands-on. Knock on doors, shake people's hands, go to small businesses, visit communities. And his opponent enjoys campaigning in a different way. And so the media coverage, especially social media, has come across very negative for Bob.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. How does a campaign, with the influx of social media, how can a candidate control what others say? Because, the passions are so high on both sides,
You can't control your supporters. I'm sure both sides would say, oh, I wish that this person hadn't said this. And you can't control your supporters. The best thing that any individual could do, if they're reviewing the candidates, if they're looking into the issues, is to go to the source. They need to look at Bob's campaign page. They need to read what Bob says, not what is being said about Bob.
Right.
Not someone else's judgment about Bob, but what Bob says, what Bob's campaign says. And the social media spin has degraded political campaigning.
Yeah. Well, there's also been, we're talking with Gayla Bailey. She's the wife of Bob Bailey. Social media, I guess we've also discovered some interesting things on social media too. I mean, based on supporters, there are some supporters who are saying they're voting for Bob's opponent, and they are openly saying, that they are not Republicans, that they're actually Democrats. I find that kind of interesting. We were just talking about that, how, we may have people who maybe disagree with limited government conservatism, and so they're going to, vote for Breanne instead. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that's very sad.
Yeah.
When the system was set up, it was set up for honorable people. Primaries are set up for the political party to choose the candidate that they feel is best to run in a general election. It's not, and never was meant to be, a chance for the opposition to throw the election to the candidate that they most prefer. It kind of defeats the whole purpose
of parties, really.
Of parties, that's correct.
Well, that's certainly interesting. Okay, let me see here. What else? Let's talk about, you made a social media post this morning on the politics of money. So tell us about that specific post.
Okay, well, first you could go to my Facebook page and read it.
Okay.
Honestly, I have tried to stay out of the fray, but some things have been said and certain accusations made that I said I just need to address. Someone needs to address it, might as well be me.
Okay.
I always taught my students to be active in supporting what they believe and to prove to have the proof for what they believe, or I didn't want to hear it.
Okay.
They used to not like that very much in class, but it was good for them. And I think that I developed some really strong self-thinkers. But yesterday, the Freedom of Information Act, the candidates have to turn in their donations and the monies that have been contributed to them. And those numbers came out, and I was going through them and looking at them. And it was so blatantly obvious that there was a money direction and support for one candidate over the other candidate.
Yeah.
And so I took the time to balance this out, to show contributions from where and from whom, and for both sides, also the spending. And both campaigns have talked about how there was outside money coming into each campaign. The numbers will show that that one campaign has approximately $150,000, the bulk of which is from Little Rock.
Yep.
And other out of district funds.
12,000 of it is from out of state.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I probably need to just go ahead and qualify right now. Bob's campaign did get $100 from out of state.
$100.
Yeah. We're not sure where that money was specifically spent, but there was $100 from out of state. And we had one Facebook attack on us in our campaign because we accepted that $100.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Was that recently, or was that
It was the first time.
First time.
I'm sure that
12,000 though. And see, and I guess that's what's frustrating is the other side has made money an issue of the campaign when what they are accusing one side of they're more guilty of. And I think it's because they immediately, I think they know that was I don't know if they were vulnerable to that, you know.
Well, people have heard me say before, it's like a tit for tat thing. If one side is going to attack the other side, then they need to know that they're also susceptible for attack. And you can't say one person's wrong if the other person is doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But I'd really like for people to follow the money, because Bob's campaign is run on a very small.
Yeah. Well, and you go back and listen to all that talk about money outside of the district, and you say, you look at it and it's like, wow, okay, Bob Bailey has run a successful campaign. He has made it to a runoff, and he's only raised $42,000 when she's raised 142, 150. That's amazing, and it's very clear who the underdog is here. Compared to the the establishment, and of course I think I was at the polls yesterday, and I think there's just a ton of support right now. People getting out and voting for Bob, just from what I can tell. But it's let's make money. If they want to if people who are listening want to make money an issue of the campaign, I agree with you, Gayla. We'll follow the money. Where's it really coming from? And let the numbers speak for themselves.
That's the point. That's the whole point of
the post.
The post. That's the whole point. And I think it goes back, and I'm just going to say, I think it goes back to how the campaigns have been working. Bob may not have the money, but he has the individual support. He has people working at the grassroots level who can't afford to give him $2,700, who will go knock on doors, or who will make telephone calls. And it just shows the supporter group that, has worked with Bob. And I appreciate that. I think that if we made political campaigns more personal, that we would probably have better people willing to throw their hat into the ring to campaign.
Yeah.
And then I think the other issue is, and again, we kind of go back to social media. Neither candidate should be attacked on their personal views. I am a perfectly capable person to determine what I believe and why I believe it. And you don't have any right to attack me personally. You can have a conflict with my view.
Yeah, your policy.
Yeah, you can say, man, Ms. Bailey, I really see it this way. Wonderful. I think that's great. I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to attack you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like in any information. When I was driving in this morning, Polk County Sheriff's deputy passed me, and I pulled over because he was lights going.
Oh, he had the lights.
Passed me.
Yeah, okay.
And I pulled over. I could have walked in this morning and said, "Oh, Paul, you wouldn't believe my morning. I got pulled over by a Polk County Sheriff." All right, what's everybody going to think?
Right.
That they pulled me over. I was speeding. I was doing something illegal. That wasn't it at all. I was simply doing what I'm supposed to do as a driver on the road.
Yeah, when you see the lights behind you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But campaigns can cause any spin that they want to on that.
Right.
And that's when it's the responsibility of the voter to actually go out and make sure that what they're reading and what's being said is correct. That's why you go to the candidates page.
Yeah, and get them in their own words. And that's the thing. I think like both of these candidates have spoken plenty at public forums and have, and we know, we have records of what they have said. And I think, that's when it becomes an issue. Of course, then, I have found, then then you got accusations if they don't like it, oh, you're fake news. And that sort of thing. Have you heard the fake news
please.
Gangs out there?
Yes. One of my very favorite things from your broadcast yesterday about the
contract,
the
government contract,
right?
Yeah,
and it looks unethical. Was it ethical? I think the paperwork will show you that you can see what took place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can see
it's there.
It's there
in the public. It's FOIable. Everybody can get the documents that we have.
And again, it can be spent.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that what you presented was fact. You can't argue with fact. She is part of a company. She has access to a school board.
Yeah.
She has special access because of her position. And then she gets a contract.
Her company does.
Her company gets a contract. Yeah. Well, they had a foot in the door.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's all I was saying, because that kind of stuff is rampant. Like I said, maybe people are fine with that. And there's people there's probably, maybe there's business people right now that say, well, that's perfectly fine. Okay, all right. Well, then make the decision.
Right.
But let's not just say that's not true.
Well, and then the Facebook posts were, oh, that's just the spin. That's fake news. If they would look at the information, they would see it's not fake news. You can't say something's fake news just because you don't like the news.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You can't just blatantly say, well, I don't believe it because it was on conservative talk radio.
Yeah.
But now if it'd been on Howard Stern, I'm all about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You have to look at both sides of any issue.
So let's just, as we're wrapping up, we're talking with Gayla Bailey. She's the wife of Bob Bailey. So just how are you doing? I know this has been out of your comfort zone. You said that earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
But where do we go from here? How do we propel through Tuesday? What are you guys doing to make that happen?
Well, Bob's campaign is still knocking on doors. Bob's still visiting area businesses. Bob has spent a lot of time simply walking the streets. His campaign is personal. It's based on getting people to know him as a person. And Bob is he's just a good man. This is not his comfort zone either. But he has a strong desire to see the people back in control of the state government. He hasn't gotten the big Republican support. He's not supported by the huge Little Rock PACs. And his campaign has actually turned down money from people that he just said he wouldn't feel comfortable taking money from.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a lot about his character.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be bullied into doing something just for the sake of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna listen, and he's going to address issues, and he's going to be positive. And I feel very confident that his campaign is going to be successful.
Yes.
Because of the simple fact, the way that they have carried themselves and handled the pressures and the issues involved in campaigning.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of him.
Good.
I'm very proud of him, and I'm proud of the honest and forthright campaign that his committee has carried out.
Yeah.
And just saying, and I'm probably not even supposed to say this, but I'm going to anyway. I hope that people will get out and vote for Bob. I would love for people that have questions about anything to come into the headquarters and actually talk to him.
Yeah.
Listen to him.
Yeah.
Be open-minded enough to hear a different point of view.
So, Gayla Bailey, I take it you're voting for your husband?
Already did that.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on the program. I really do.
Thank you very much.
Folks, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
iTex is your first choice for cost-effective IT services. Protecting your business means protecting your data. Are you tired of unpredictable and expensive spikes in IT spending? Using iTex will prevent downtime and loss of employee productivity, and do it all with an affordable, predictable budget. iTex is the premier managed service provider for small and medium businesses. They help their clients put IT to work to earn your business more money, and you should contact them today for a free consultation. 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I want to remind everybody the state treasurer's budget failed yesterday by one vote. That includes the changes to the 529 school choice saving plans, a great amendment that was offered by Senator Jason Rapert to actually bring Arkansas in line with the votes of our federal delegation, John Bozeman, Tom Cotton, Rick Crawford, French Hill, Bruce Westerman, and Steve Womack. That is interesting that it failed. Now, it was State Representative Kim Hendren, who was the one Republican that voted no, given it was one vote shy of passing, and that's unfortunate. Because and then they're saying that if they do this, the DFNA is estimating it's going to hit the Arkansas revenue by $5 million. I don't believe that for a second. If you open these 529 savings accounts and you allow people to use them not just for college but also private school, this is just really. I mean, I'm just upset about this. Anyway, you can see the article over at conduitforaction.org. It's still at the top of the page at conduitforaction.org if you want to know more about these 529 savings plans. School choice is in the Republican platform. I repeat, it is in the Republican platform. Folks, that's all the time that we have for today. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank specifically the Arkansas River Valley for listening to the program. It has been a pleasure being here these last 3 days. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday.